Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Kingdom Hearts Final Mix. In the last part we finished off the Synthesis side quest, forging Sora's ultimate weapon, alongside several really good accessories. And now it's time for us to head back to Olympus Coliseum for several duties here. First off, and this is definitely the longer of our two duties here, it's time for us to tackle the latter two incarnations of the Hades Cup, both the Sora Alone Cup and Time Attack version of it. This takes a while, but thankfully, because we've seen all the fights here, we're just going to speed up the entire cup this time, rather than just the key Heartless along the way. You theoretically could have tackled this as soon as you finish the original Hades Cup, but I recommend at least doing some of the other super bosses and some synthesis first just to have better accessories going into this. With that said, no matter what, just because of the experience you'll gain along the way, largely the latter two versions of this cup will move faster than the first one. Future Me can probably chime in with the actual numbers, but if memory serves, the first one of the Hades Cup, including the failures, was about an hour to an hour and a half, somewhere in that range. If memory serves, the Sora Alone Cup here took me about 36, 37 minutes, somewhere about there. And I want to say the Time Attack took me less than a half hour, which tracks, actually, given the time limit they impose on you. So just to note this outright in a video here, we are coming up on the endgame, of course. If you're ever afraid of what your level needs to be for endgame, largely you're going to be fine between levels 60 and 65 in my memory on beginner, 65 to 75 on normal, and on proud mode you probably want to edge more towards like 70 to 80, somewhere in that range. And if you ever need to farm out those experience levels, not for nothing, every single version of the Hades Cup is really good for that. But depending on what else you want to get done, there are other potentially more efficient methods of level grinding. Refighting the Ice Titan to get tech points off of reflecting the Ice Bolts is really good for just getting Sora experience. Farming the Pink Agaricus tech points can be really good for all three of the party members involved. And if you're actively trying to get the trophies tied to getting all the Keyblades, all the staves, and all the shields, farming the Defenders and Wizards for their rare drops will also get you a lot of experience along the way, as they're always decently relevant, EXP output-wise. My personal recommendation is just not tackling these latter two versions of the cup, though, until you have the Ultimate Weapon, as it really just will help smooth things over due to its absurd stat buffs. You can make do with things like Diamond Dust if you like using magic and all that, or some of the stronger physical Keyblades. But it's just such a good all-in-one package that it makes the task in front of you, especially with how daunting it looks visibly, just that much more doable. Plus, not for nothing, the rewards from these latter two versions of the cup really do fit best if you've actively gotten the Ultimate Weapon first. The Sora Alone version of the Hades Cup doesn't start off too bad. Heck, even if you did it immediately after the standard version of the cup, you'd get pretty far. But around the time you reach Cloud and Leon, the aggression of every opponent entirely focusing on you can get chaotic. Have some good healing items on standby. I recommend Graviga, Eroga, and Kiraga be on your shortcuts. Hades is probably going to be your worst fight overall until that last 10, and that's largely because the end of the world's Heartless really show their strengths when you're the only target. I do consider the Sora Alone version of the Hades Cup the hardest version of it, though, as having Donald and Goofy around as meat shields and extra damage really does help in the other two incarnations. If you make it all the way to the Rock Titan, even if it takes a couple tries, you've pretty much made it home free, because that becomes a victory lap at that point, as you'll especially see with the level of damage I deal to him in this fight coming up right here. For clearing the Sora Alone version of the Hades Cup, we get the Save the Queen, Donald's ultimate weapon. Or at least, it's meant to be and visually fits the part better than the rest of his weapon cast. It boosts Donald's strength by 10 points here in Final Mix, up from a boost of 9 in Vanilla. It's a long rod so we can swipe at enemies pretty efficiently with it, and with a recoil stat of 60, it can deflect most attacks. Issue is, it only boosts his MP by 2. The Fantasista we got from Synthesis boosts his MP by 3, and since spell efficacy in this game is determined by the max MP of the user, it's technically worse overall for his focus. As an overall weapon, Save the Queen is better, but if you want him entirely focusing on casting, the Fantasista is overall your best option. Now we're on to the Time Attack variant of the Hades Cup, which is definitely a rather daunting looking task. While each of the prior Cup Time Attacks had a time limit of 3 minutes for 10 rounds each, this has a time limit of 20 minutes for 50 rounds. That does math out to more time per round than the prior Cups, admittedly, roughly 24 seconds here per round compared to the prior Cups' 18 or so seconds per round. But given the amount of moving parts in some of these fights, especially things like Cloud and Leon, the destroyed Behemoth, let alone Hades the Rock Titan, the timer can seem very intense here. With that said, if you're even remotely in like your mid-60s of level, this is going to be a much easier version of the Cup than the standard version of the Cup, or especially the Sora Alone version. I usually finish this with almost a fourth of the time remaining, if not a little more, depending on what level I actively tackle it. And ultimately, it's the more worthwhile doing one too, because while the Save the Queen is a debatably better weapon than the Fantasista, the reward at the end of this cup is definitively the best in its category. Thinking on it, while the ultimate weapon is definitely doing some really heavy lifting here, if there's a recommendation I have for the later two versions of the Hades Cups, it's to get at least through the Tier 3 recipes and synthesis, if not even some of the ones in Tier 4, as many of the accessories present in those two tiers can really help boost you up in interesting ways that are much easier ultimately on your time when it comes to farming out the materials. Because, while it probably came across last time, the time invested in synthesis really does have an exponential curve time-wise. Getting early recipes done takes much less effort, and even the mid-game recipes aren't too bad relative to the time it takes. Heck, even if they have late-game Final Mix exclusives in their recipes, only potentially wanting 2 to 3 of a specific rare material can take much less time to gather than 6 or more of said material. Also, if it's not incredibly obvious by the general theme of the Olympus Coliseum speed-up themes, Falcom music really is just some of the best in the industry consistently. Heck, the only reason Metroid Prime 4 kind of broke the trend there is because I've thought about that boss theme ever since I finished that game. That game had a lot of weird issues to it, but the soundtrack, when it actively played, was never one of them. That game had incredible music. So while our reward for the Sora Alone version of the Hades Cup was Donald's ultimate weapon, our reward here in the time attack variant of it is Goofy's ultimate weapon, the Save the King. This shield boosts Goofy's strength by 11 here in Final Mix, up from a boost of 10 in Vanilla. It also boosts his MP by 2. It's a very large shield, so he'll be doing a lot of deflecting with it and have pretty good reach. And it has a recoil of 90, so he's going to be deflecting pretty much every attack in the game that can be deflected. The 7-element shield from Synthesis is technically better for his MP-based abilities, but largely, if you like to have him physical like I do, this or the Defender shield are his best options. Time for the final Coliseum match. Welcome to the final of the bosses they introduced in the international version of Kingdom Hearts 1, Sephiroth himself. I love this version of One-Winged Angel, but something about the very start of it's always thrown me off, I won't lie. You're going to want Arrow and Cure on your shortcuts in this fight pretty universally, even if I'm not super good about using Arrow specifically. But at most, I'd say keep your MP around the middle of it just so you have some emergency heals, because he is aggressive. Sephiroth works in phases entirely dependent on his current health. At the start of the fight, until you reduce his first health bar or so, he walks around the arena towards you slowly. During this phase, he's largely going to swipe his absurdly long Masamune at you, starting from his left side, do a jump forward and swing before jumping back, or summon 3 fire pillars around him. This one in specific, he's very aggressive about the third of those attacks. Guard works against some of his attacks, but due to their speed, I'd recommend either dodge roll for the invincibility frames, using the invincibility frames of a limit like Strike Rate or Ars Arcanum, or being risky and trying to parry with a strike of your own. With that said, the third option there is only really reliable if you have a Keyblade that has about 70 plus recoil, as they are all very strong attacks. Phase 2 starts after about the first health bar, and he'll taunt you by just telling you to come at him. At that point, he'll actively start running for you rather than walking. He also gains 2 attacks in this phase he'll use decently regularly. This is one of them right here. This is Heartless Angel right out of his fight in Final Fantasy VII. During that, he'll make some distance from you, raise his hand up in the air, and generate a halo. If you don't interrupt him during that, he'll reduce your HP to 1 and your MP to 0, so have an elixir on standby just in case. Physically attacking him is enough to interrupt it. Just be careful, because he'll almost immediately follow up an interruption with a cast of his Fire Pillar attack. The other attack he uses moving forward in this fight is Wild Dance, where the arena will darken and he'll just teleport around trying to overwhelm you with physical attacks. You can dodge that, but I'd recommend just using Strike Rate for the prolonged invincibility. Just be careful though, because the final strike is a downward blow from above, and he usually tries to follow it up immediately with Heartless Angel once again. The aura he just put around himself like the Riku Anza fight means we've started phase 3. That aura will boost the strength of his early fight physical attacks outright, and he starts the phase by casting Supernova here. During this, he makes meteors fall down, which do damage outright, but then he starts charging his own Spirit Bomb, which he eventually throws in front of him to do a massive explosion. You can just get behind him during that, though, to avoid that. While it doesn't look it, though, he is completely invulnerable during that strike. I'd recommend just making some space more than anything. The other new attacks in this phase is Shadow Flare, which creates several different arrangements of blue orbs that will either stay there to be traps or enclose upon you directly, and a teleporting Spin Slash with his sword that he'll usually follow up with one of the earlier 2 physical attacks from the very start of the fight. He gets chaotic in this last phase, but some good limits can really save you in the last second if you're really pressed for time. You want to be decently aggressive in this fight, but always be prepared to hit the dodge roll button just in case by reading his animations, as otherwise he can really surprise you with some damage and pile it up pretty quickly. Second chance is, of course, really nice for this fight because of that, but if you're not careful, you might not be able to get a heal out in time. Hard fight, but very doable. One super boss remains, and it's the one they added in Final Mix, and we'll be tackling them shortly. For clearing that fight, we get the Final Mix exclusive One-Winged Angel Keyblade, as well as Ansem's report number 12. The Keyblade boosts Sora's strength by 8, and it's very long. I think it's the same length as the ultimate weapon even. 90 recoil, so you can deflect most attacks with it, but it also reduces Sora's MP by 2, but that's because you're not casting with it. While it has a 0.5 times crit rate, the One-Winged Angel has an absurd crit damage bonus of 16. So if you crit, those enemies are going to be feeling it if they don't just outright get killed by it if they're normal Heartless. I don't use it too much, but it is incredibly powerful. Next up, before we move on, let's go read Ansem report number 12, why don't we? The body is gone. The heart should have returned to the Heartless, and yet, nothing. This one is unlike any other. Its memories remain, and it has yet to take the form of a Heartless. A close eye must be kept on the situation. Much is still unknown. To get to the realm of darkness, one must go through the doors of Kingdom Hearts, the place where the world's hearts connect. Beyond this world is a place in which darkness reigns. Details shall be archived in a separate report. There are many worlds in existence, some of which we know nothing about. The world in which we live, the realm of darkness, the realm of light, and the world in between, wherein lies true nirvana. Oh god, we're starting to get existentially philosophical with this. Oh boy, get used to that. With that though, our time in Olympus Coliseum is concluded. I've been looking for you. As have I. As long as you exist, I'll never wake from this nightmare. You're my darkness. I'm a part of you, am I? Then join me in this eternal nightmare untarnished by light. few others we've talked about across the LP, that cutscene there was actively added here in Final Mix. Upon defeating Sephiroth in the original game, you just left and nothing else happened. Also, because I haven't talked about this part yet, you can actively take a look at the ranks and seeds across all of the cups here in the main lobby of Olympus Coliseum. At most, though, that's just to warn you what's coming up in the case you actually want to strategize around it. Not that that would help you too much in the case of the Hades Cup, given how long it can end up being. Before we get too far ahead, though, worth noting Sephiroth's voices. In Japanese, he's voiced by Toshiyuki Morikawa, who, outside of being Sephiroth period, also voices Spider-Man in the Japanese dub of the 90s cartoon, Kira in Dojo, Nick Wilde, Nash and sometimes Ryu in Street Fighter, Griffith in Berserk, Jonoichi in Yu-Gi-Oh!, Eneru and Hachi in One Piece, Ishin Kurosaki, Minato in Naruto, Aizen in Tales of Berseria, Arios in the Trail series. Since the early 2010s, he's been the voice of both Dante, Devil May Cry, and Leon S. Kennedy as well. On top of that, I believe he's also the Japanese dub-over actor for Keanu Reeves, so he's both the voice of Johnny Silverhand in Cyberpunk, as well as Shadow in the third Sonic movie. What a role set, huh? On the opposite side of the spectrum, and this is pretty well known, but I feel like at least some people probably don't know about this, Sephiroth's English voice actor is Lance Bass, former bass singer for NSYNC. I think he still even has first voice of Sephiroth on a lot of his social media bios. It's actually really funny. With that, time for our next duty, and one of the last things that Final Mix actively added. The portal that took us to the Dragon Maleficent fight has now returned, and it leads us to our final super boss. Worth noting, all the Princesses of Heart that are here do actively comment on it slightly, but it's pretty much the same dialogue in 6 different, very minor ways. So, you're gonna want your best for this fight, in general. I'd recommend at least being maybe level 68 to 73. Make sure you have Cure, Arrow, and Graviga as your shortcuts. Graviga in specific, you can actively stun the boss doing that if you time it well enough, which I don't think I successfully do, but I try several times at doing. And make sure your accessories are as good as you can get them to be, because it's time for one hell of a fight.
Who are you?
It seems you are special too.
I am Sam?
That name rings familiar. You remind me of him.
What's that supposed to mean?
It means you are not whole. You are incomplete. Allow me to test your strength.
The super boss added to Kingdom Hearts Final Mix is this cage figure known simply only as the Unknown. While I don't do so here, I recommend opening this fight with both the Arrow spell as well as Tinkerbell just to keep your HP up as high as you can while not having to waste time curing yourself. Although not for nothing, a well-timed cure, let alone Strike Raid or Ars Arcanum, can prevent you from taking a lot of damage in this fight. I end up using Graviga a lot here, and I get the tech points for it working, but what I'm trying to actively do with it is a well-timed tasking of that can actively knock the Unknown to their knees, leaving them open for some quick hits. This boss is fast, as you can plainly see, and has plenty of attacks to back it up. Heck, once a good chunk of their health is removed, they also start teleporting around the arena at will for either a fast hit up close or from a distance, and can even do so while you're mid-combo. The only case they don't do that super actively is from flinching, which will happen here and again through combos as it is, or if you get a Graviga off properly on them. But I want to say they're also more susceptible to flinching if you hit them with an air combo in general. Being the final super boss, of course, every attack this boss has hits really hard, but while they might not hit as hard as, say, the Rock Titan, they come out quickly enough where it's very easy to get yourself into a combo and have your health reduced to 1, assuming you have second chance on it all, which you really should. Worth noting, though, pretty much every physical strike this boss does can be repelled. It's just that counterattacks are unlikely to land, as the counterattack prompt, if you have that ability on at all, will probably just hit right into another follow-up attack, interrupting that one instead. Also worth noting, most of this boss's attacks are counted as Thunder Elemental, while the remaining few that aren't are actively Dark Elemental. So having something like a Ramu belt on or a ribbon can actively really save you some damage here as well. As for their active attacks, they'll often react to physical attacks by putting up a wall. That wall's summoning animation does do damage. They also have 3 distinct counterattacks otherwise. Swipes with the blades in either hand that result in them spinning away in the matching direction, or a kick away while they gain some distance. They also have 3 distinct projectile attacks. 2 of them are red and blue shots directly at a target, with red doing more damage, and bombs they push forward away from them that are blue and white. They're more traps than anything. Worth noting that the red projectiles, they'll only come out after a specific attack, specifically this one. During this, they become a giant energy orb of damage that also fires lasers out of them. Super glide away or leaf bracer through this as best you can, because otherwise it's pretty risky. Otherwise, outside of their large dual-bladed combo we've seen a couple times that just goes on forever, their only other attack is called Invitation to Nothingness, where they actively grab Sora. That grab completely changes your command menu to Shock, with one selection rapidly swapping to Release at random. Selecting Shock by accident will make Sora take some dark damage alongside the party, while Release ends the status. Worth noting, you can avoid that attack by having Simba, Bambi, or Genie out. This fight is hard, but it actively rewards both some defensive plays, but also some absurdly aggressive plays compared to later game super bosses.
Impressive. This will be enjoyable.
What are you talking about?
It is beyond your comprehension for now. Until we meet again.
Wait! What are you...
I am. But the mere shadow.
For clearing that fight, we get the EXP necklace as well as the final Ansem's report. That's actually the same EXP necklace you start beginner mode with that increases experience earned by 30% and gives you an extra 2 AP. Completing that fight has also now completely wrapped up Jiminy's journal, as not only do we have the final Ansem's report, we have the final character in the game, the question mark that is the Unknown themselves. A mysterious figure who appeared in Hollow Bastion, indeed. The character section of Jiminy's journal effectively acts as a bestiary by the by, though between the Heartless section and the characters themselves, I believe there are some that just don't have entries for some reason. Either way, let's read that final Ansem's report. Where does the body go when it separates from the heart? If the soul remains within the body, is it still considered to be deceased? When the heart returns to the Heartless, the physical form disappears. But that is merely true in this world. Perhaps the body exists in another form, in another world. If that is the case, then it is possible for one to exist in 2 worlds. A being that is neither darkness nor light, belonging nowhere, abandoned by its heart, a mere shell of its former self. The relation between the heart and body is complex. However, I am certain that if your self exists here, then by definition, the other cannot truly exist. The other, the one which does not exist, shall be dubbed nobody. Let's keep that in mind for the future. With that out of the way, outside of one last stop in at Big Ben, we're pretty much done with everything I care to do across the worlds of Kingdom Hearts outside of the actual endgame. You could theoretically go max out your levels if you wanted to, but frankly, I think the endgame is best approached around level 65 to 80 at best. Let's go finish this. I am going to showcase my setup going into this, but worth noting, the moment you examine the door, you're not immediately thrown into the final boss. We're going to get a cutscene first, and then you have to examine it again to actively start the endgame. So just make sure whatever you want to do here, that you're completely at the ready. You could theoretically synthesis farm out some extra AP ups and things like that just to get your stats a little bit higher or be able to equip more abilities, but I personally do not care to do that at this point, as I think I've done enough. And hey, why not Encounter Plus for the heck of it? Why not? Let's do this. Huh? What's wrong? Don't you hear something? There. Careful. This is the last haven you'll find here. Beyond, there is no light to protect you. But don't be afraid. Your heart is the mightiest weapon of all. Remember, you are the one who opened the door to the light. I don't hear anything. Strange, that voice was so familiar. Maybe it's just my imagination? Maybe you'd better take a rest. Nah, Donald. No time for resting. It's time to end this.